I'm Sue Hitzmann. I'm the creator of the MELT method, and my mission is to help people live a more active, healthy, pain-free life. I've been in the fitness industry for my whole life, and in the early 80s I was doing aerobic classes, and by the time I got to 16, my very first legitimate job was as an aerobic instructor. In my early 20s, I was doing a master's at NYU. I had the privilege of working with elite athletes and had this great knack of getting these high-performance athletes back out on the field after they had gotten injured. So from fitness, as I got into doing manual therapy, I opened up my private practice in New York City, and I started to treat people using multiple modalities, from heavy compression techniques to these light touch therapeutic techniques. And the one common thread of all of the therapies was connective tissue. So for years I had been trying to figure out more about connective tissue and what really this system was. When I first started looking at fascia in 1998 on the internet, there were 150 sites. Today there are 55 million sites citing fascia or connective tissue. I would say one of the greatest privileges that I have had over the past 2 decades is collaborating and getting to know and work with some of the top researchers, scientists, and truly the pioneers of neurofascial science and research. In 2006, we started to establish the Fascial Research Society, and the Fascial Research Society at Harvard was certainly the catalyst for the education of fascial research being far more exposed to the general public. And the MELT method has really been the vehicle to assist this science to get out to the general population so that people treat this very system that science now can validate as being a resource of stability, control, and connection. I just think that we're just at the beginning of what we're going to find out about the power of connective tissue. The way that the MELT method started was in my private practice. I started developing this at-home self-treatment technique to empower my clients to do things outside of the office to continue their healing. Today there are over 1,000 MELT instructors worldwide helping people get out and stay out of chronic pain. We have helped hundreds of thousands of people achieve a more pain-free, active lifestyle, and we are just at the beginning. welcome to our webinar today. I'm Sue Hitzmann, creator of the MELT method. I love that intro, most specifically because I love seeing all of the instructors that we have. I've literally trained over 2,000 instructors worldwide. We're in 28 countries now, and we're actually going to be talking to one of our newest MELT instructors, Lumi, who just went through the online training, and I love her background because she has such a similar thread as I do. She's a Bowen therapist, and she does physiotherapy and lymphedema and all of these other things. So I'm excited to chat with her a little bit later. Quick housekeeping, if you are new to MELT and you're listening to us on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. I'm always doing something on YouTube. We're also on Instagram and Facebook at MELT Method, so you can do that as well. And if you have any questions, like maybe you're asking about an order that you had, maybe you're already in the MELT world, or you have some question about our new platform, MELT On Demand, we have a designated email. It's just info@meltmethod.com if those are the kind of questions that come up. But today we're going to be talking about the upcoming Level 1 MELT Instructor Training course. It kicks off in just about a month from now on July the 12th. And we've already getting signups for this one, so I'm always excited to bring this in. I started doing these trainings online, of course. When COVID stopped the world of live trainings, I've done literally almost 100 trainings around the world for this. And when COVID happened, I was like, we had all of these instructors wanting to go to the upper level trainings. I said, we're just going to move it online. And I'm excited for the Level 1 course. We've trained over 500 people in the Level 1 course successfully online, where they're now teaching in live settings as well as online. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Now, I know a lot of you guys just saw on this intro a little story about me, and I've been in the fitness industry literally since I'm 16 years old. I'm in my 50s now. It's been a minute. And, you know, my background is in neuromuscular therapy. I was working with high performance athletes and was really working with sports injuries, repetitive stress injuries. And in the late 90s, I got myself into chronic pain, and it really veered me out of the fundamentals of neuromuscular therapy and exercise science of a master's in physiology and anatomy. And when I got into the type of pain that I had, it started out as foot pain. And over the course of a number of months, it turned into this body-wide fatigue and ache that sent me down the road that many people take, where you go down to doctors, and I had doctors doing CAT scans and MRIs. And what started out as a diagnosis of plantar fasciitis quite quickly went over to lupus, fibromyalgia, or chronic fatigue. And I just knew that there was something that the doctors were missing. And the only thing that the doctors had for me were things like medication. I got, you know, anti-inflammatories, antidepressants. I'm sure some of you who have ever had chronic pain have heard these similar stories. And my luck of it was that I was always a curious person anyway. And in the late 90s, when Google became a thing, I just kept thinking, my first diagnosis was plantar fasciitis. And I was like, inflamed fascia. Could inflamed fascia actually cause all of this pain and fatigue? And if that's the case, there's no exercise for that. And the first word I typed into Google was fascia, and I found this emerging field of neuroscientists and fascial researchers that were looking at fascia specifically on a cellular level. It had just begun. And today, you know, again, I'm a founding member of the Fascial Research Society, and I've spent the greater good of the last 20 years as a neurofascial science and research educator. And I've taken this science and infused it into a methodology so that the general public, those of us who are not well seasoned in human science, could actually take action. And I started sharing these techniques in 2004 in group environments. And 2006, I started doing teacher trainings. And again, today we've got 2,000 instructors worldwide sharing the MELT message. And the beauty of MELT is that it kind of is a bridge between the fitness and the therapeutic industries, and brings these things together into a methodology that you can do at home on your own. You can teach it as a group class environment. You can teach it one-on-one. You can add it to any type of therapeutic practice. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to share my screen and give you guys a little just understanding of what is fascia? And why should you know a little bit more about this? And why am I not talking, why have I not said the word myofascial? And I'm gonna explain why. So for those of you who know about connective tissue, I'm gonna give you a little expansive concept of it, because what I'm looking to do is to help you guys become a MELT instructor and not only give you a little bit of science today, but explain why you might want to add MELT into your toolbox to create a business in hands-off bodywork and actually begin to generate a new form of revenue by using MELT, which is always a great thing when you can quickly infuse a methodology into it. So first, what is MELT? MELT is hands-off bodywork. It's the application and simplification of neurofascial science, and it's infused into a simple self-care treatment method. And our focus of MELT is to address the neurofascial system to help improve the autonomic regulators that manage your efficiency and rejuvenate the supportive qualities of your fascial system. Now, one thing I'm going to say here is that MELT is not a myofascial release technique. Yes, we do use rollers and balls, but we are not focused on the fascia as it relates to muscles alone. We are really looking at the global matrix of fascia. We aren't trying to release myofascia or eradicate trigger points. In fact, I feel like I was one of the first people to say that I don't think fascia releases. Fascia rehydrates, and the fluid flow of fascia and the interstitial fluids that are in fascia are what keep the collagen matrix stable and integrated. I'll talk a little bit about that as we go. I've developed MELT out of my hands-on practice. I have been a manual therapist for 25 years, and I just basically figured out a way from one client way back who said, if you could just invent a way for me to do to myself with you, that what you do with your magic hands, I'd stay out of your office. And I started playing around with balls, rocks, rollers, and I came up with this idea of taking PVC piping, I wrapped it in bubble wrap, I wrapped it in a yoga blanket and then a yoga mat, and I duct taped that thing together. And I started doing these light compression techniques on my own body, and I decompressed my neck one day. I knew that I did it. I shared it with this client who had chronic TMJ, migraines, and back pain, and it transformed her. Instead of being able to go a week between sessions and maintain days that she didn't have a migraine, she was going weeks and into a month. And that's when I knew I had it. And she said, can you invent a way for my husband to stop nagging me about his back pain? And there it was. And that's how I started to develop the method. So we use a soft roller. You guys who use hard rollers, it's a very different methodology. We don't roll very much in MELT. And again, what we're focused on is the neurofascial system. So let me just give you a little bit of an idea. Fascia, for those of you who have heard about fascia, fascia has been known about for centuries, in fact. And the way that I was taught what fascia was it was this inactive, passive material that supported and created cushioning for everything. It separated parts of your body. It was kind of like the accessory system, like the stuff that you get in your UPS box and you just chuck it in the bucket to get to the good stuff. But fascia has really changed because of atomic force microscopy. And this was what was so fascinating to me, is that we're using confocal lasers to look at not just the connective tissue itself, but the cells that produce what is called the extracellular matrix. And these new ways of looking at the cells, we're now able to see the most intricate aspects of the fascial system. And actually in 2007, when Dr. J.C. Gumberto showed his strolling under the skin video, I thought I had seen everything. But in the 2018 Fascia Congress in Berlin, one of the top fascial researchers, Carla Stecco, was talking about a brand new cell called a fasciocyte. Now think about that. It's 2022 and we're still discovering new cells in our body. So if we think that we know everything, and you hear about people being fascial experts, I hear a lot of fascia gurus are out there. If they're not talking about the intricate network and cannot explain how this system works, I don't know, we've got a lot to learn, and I wouldn't call myself a guru or a super educated person either. I feel like I'm up at that top level, but what I can tell you is there is just so much we are learning because of atomic force microscopy. I mean, all the way down to our DNA. So amazing. So these new definitions, the committee that defines these scientific terms are actually still in controversy. But at the last conference we had, the fascial definition hasn't gotten more specific. It's actually gotten broader because fascia plays a role in everything. So the most recent definition of fascia today is all of the collagenous soft tissues in the body. That includes your cartilage, your ligaments, your tendons, and the cells that create and maintain the intricate microscopic network that we define as the extracellular matrix. That's our definition of fascia today. So that's really a very broad statement. And what's happened because of atomic force microscopy is we're starting to create a change in terminology. That's where we're getting more refined. So whether we're talking about connective tissue, or you've seen the word fascia or fascia, so multiple fascias or singular, superficial fascia, deep fascia, myofascia, the loose areolar connective tissue, the extracellular matrix, or the interstitium, all of these words are all talking about the fascial matrix. It just depends upon if you're looking at it in dissection and you're cutting it with a blade, or you're looking at it under a microscope and you're looking at the fine elements. And that's pretty much what you're seeing here from macroscopic to microscopic terminology. What I can tell you is that fascia is the stability system of your body. And what I want you to see here is the word stability and system. It is not just a tissue. It's not an organ. It is a system of stability. And that is really powerful because it means that it's playing a role in all aspects of stability. And when I say stability, I don't just mean how well you balance on a Bosu ball. I'm talking about all levels of stability: structural, cellular, hormonal, neurological, chemical, psychological, even emotional stability. I could relate the fascial system to all aspects of what keeps you stable involuntarily. So beyond myofascial syndromes and trigger points, which is what everybody's always trying to eradicate using balls and rollers, you see people telling you to iron yourself like a shirt. When you find a lumpy area, you're going to dig it out like you'll win an award for inflicting pain on your body. But fascia, again, it's not just a tissue that you're going to eradicate lumps from. Fascia is a dynamic system that plays a significant role in your joint stability, inflammation and wound repair, immune and hormonal adaptations that occur because of aging, your mental well-being, your neurological regulation, and cellular lifespan. So really, if what you're talking about is your overall health and well-being, fascia relates to everything. So fascia, I always say fascia is a body-wide neuroelectrochemical superconducting transportation network. That's a really fancy way to say it contains everything. So fascia is a three-dimensional fluid-based architectural matrix. Under your skin, there is this inseparable tissue that not only stabilizes your bones and your muscles, it is the system that stabilizes every blood vessel, nerve, organ, and cell in your body. And collectively, this is a three-dimensional matrix. It is everywhere. There is no separation. It is the only tissue in the entire body that is completely continuous from head to toe and skin to bones. It is constantly adapting to your movements and your thought patterns, and it plays a significant role, again, in your overall well-being. It is how we transport nutrients from cell to cell, integrin to integrin, cell to cell communication, chemical adaptations and chemical transferences occurring in this system. So it is playing a role, again, in your health span and your overall well-being. And one of the more recent terms that we have is this concept of biotensegrity. And we used to think of our body as a biomechanical model, but the term tensegrity is a structural relationship principle describing synergy between two existing pairs of physical laws: tension and compression. So fascia is the tension and compression management system in your body. And it is the fascial system, this non-linear fluid-based system that allows motion to occur with minimal energy expenditure and without losing stability when stress is applied. And in recent times, We call this continuous system a biotensegrity system. So what is biotensegrity? It's kind of self-assembly of all living matter. So unlike a traditional building block where you have one brick stacked atop another until you have continuous compression elements holding a structure together, tensegrity architecture has discontinuous compression elements in a continuous tension network. So there's no one area that ever yields the demand of any movement. That's why when you have shoulder pain, you might actually have hip issues later on. And the only system in the entire body that possesses this polyhedric shape is fascia. It's everywhere, and in all living matter, we see these microscopic elements of tensegrity and these polyhedric shapes. So it is a part of all self-assembly, and you would think the most abundant material that possesses this type of tension and compression shape, we would have studied more, but it's really just in the last 25 years that we've really looked at it so closely. So on a macroscopic level, it is true. Fascia does provide you structural stability, and truly you cannot be efficiently mobile if you're inefficiently stable. And again, what is the stability system of your body? It is this fascial system. So when fascia is not stable, if it is not hydrated, if it isn't able to morph and adapt, and I'll talk about the stiff to elastic properties in a minute, if they don't have tone, we are going to feel issues in our body. But also on a microscopic level, fascia relates to cellular stability. Cells are reactive to the environment they live in. Cells need a solid mechanical environment to function in so that they can communicate with one another. So when we talk about cellular lifespan, fascia is an inherent aspect of your cell proliferation, which is another way to say your aging process. So the thing about stability is if fascia declines in its ability to either maintain cell stability or structural stability, if stability isn't there, you have compensation. And if instability and compensation persist, pain or a decline in the resilience of your life, or whatever you want to call it, is always the result. And pain itself, it's really just your body's built-in alarm system. The thing about how we deal with pain is where we run into a problem, because we're very symptom oriented especially in America. We have a pill for everything. So I always say that pain is kind of like your toaster is on fire and your fire alarm goes off. And the way that we treat the pain problem or the fire alarm is we go over to the fire alarm and we take the batteries out, but the toaster's still on fire, right? So we need to actually treat the cause of the alarm going off, because 100% of the time your brain's what's producing your sense of pain, and your fascia definitely plays a role in pain becoming chronic, because fascia will adapt because of neural signaling adaptations, and neural adaptations can occur because of fascial issues. It's a two-way street. Now listen, those of you who are listening, even if you don't have pain, I will guarantee you have felt the pre-pain signals that I often talk about in MELT as the subtle alarm system going off in your body. And you might not call it pain. So I'll give you some ideas. Have you ever woken up and feel as stiff as a dried out sponge left out overnight on your kitchen sink, or you sit for long periods of time, and when you get up, you feel like you've aged 40 years because your joints don't work as well when you get up as when they sat down, right? So if you're feeling those types of aches, which I know are very common for people, we think it's normal. People say this is just normal part of life. But the thing about these pre-pain signals is when you get up and you move around, the pain signals go away. And so we don't think it's a problem, but it is a sign that there are issues going on in your body. And if you think of the connective tissue kind of like a sponge, think of it when a sponge is hydrated, it can morph and adapt very quickly to tension and compression. It absorbs fluids very well. And when you take tension or compression away, the tissue goes back to its original shape, right? But when a sponge is dehydrated, it is not very flexible. It doesn't move or adapt when tension or compression is applied. It doesn't absorb water very well. And the only way to get fluids really back into all the nooks and crannies is to learn how to work fluid into that sponge system. And that is one of the principles of one of the R's of MELT, called rehydrate. And what's profound about fascia is when you look at this was a dissection done by Gil Hadley. This is the superficial fascia right under your skin that has all the fat. Well, if we remove the fat, you see this connective tissue matrix. It kind of looks like a sponge, right? And this is what is stabilizing you. We, especially in the fitness industry, curse the superficial fascia because that's where the fat is. There's people telling you to scratch at your fascia and bruise yourself and all of these ways to reduce cellulite. But cellulite is just the texture of fascia. There's nothing wrong with it. It is part of our bodies. And what you are seeing on the skin surface is merely what the tissue looks like in the underlying substances. Now, for those of you who don't like the cellulite, well, if you work fluid into the sponge, you don't need to cause bruising or pain. Just daily self-care treatments can juice this layer up very quickly. It's a very adaptable layer of tissue because it's very areolar. It has a very fluffy texture to it. And we can really change what we see on the skin surface through these subtle compression techniques. So one of the things we know about fascia is this change that happens when fascia does become too stiff and what I call dehydrated. Is I'm really talking about the stiff to elastic properties of melt, right? We like some stiffness in fascia, but we also like this resilience. And what the elastic property of fascia isn't fascia's ability to stretch. It's actually fascia's ability to morph and adapt and then quickly return to its ideal shape once stress is released. And that's what's important about it. So for those of you who have felt the pre-pain signals and you got up and you walked away and you never did anything about it, if fascia stays in a state of adaptation and compensation, you start getting what I call stuck stress symptoms. And that's what I call connective tissue dehydration, is stuck stress. And if you let this stuck stress accumulate, you start getting more symptoms. You notice that joints in multiple regions of your body are aching you. You're constantly feeling tension in your neck or your low back spaces because stuck stress loves to live in our spaces where fascia is extra durable. You might notice also that your balance or posture is declining. You feel less flexible than you did when you were younger, or you notice that your feet or your hands are constantly inflamed, or your belly feels bloated. You might notice that you've been exercising for years, but now when you go to work out, you have prolonged muscle soreness. And most importantly, when your connective tissue is in a state of dehydration or stress accumulation, you get more prone to stress injuries, ligament sprains, tendon strains, and all the words that end in itis, because fascia plays a leading role in low-grade inflammation, and that's what all of these things are a sign of. Now, the thing about the spaces of the body is if you think of connective tissue kind of like a river, I always say that daily living is kind of altering the fluid flow of the fascial matrix. And where this fluid flow tends to become the most adaptable is in the spaces of our body. So this is why melt is so joint focused, because I don't know about you guys, but I've never heard of somebody getting a hamstring replacement, but I certainly have a ton of clients who have had hip and knee replacements and have joint surgeries due to the lack of fascial integrity. Muscle strains are often secondary to joint instability, because here's the thing about your joints is that if your nervous system can't figure out where your joints are in relationship to gravity when you move, you are exhausting your nervous system when fascia isn't supportive. Your nervous system has no idea about muscles. When we get down to the micromanagement of the nervous system, you're talking about motor neurons, and neurons cannot signal properly when fascia is impeding on that neural flow. It is a two-way street, and again, the nervous system is relying on figuring out precisely where your joints are in relationship to gravity. And if fascia is, you have stuck stress living in those joints, your nervous system just cannot do its job properly to keep you stable. And that's why you bend over to pick up a pencil and your back goes out. And you can call that an acute trauma, but we call that sudden chronic pain. There's nothing acute about bending over to pick up a pencil when your back goes out. And here's the thing about your nervous system. You have these autonomic regulators. And so what your nervous system does when you have fascial dehydration, it doesn't throw up its hands and say, that's it, we're not moving you today. Instead, your autonomic nervous system is designed to compensate, to maintain stability. But what you do is you have compensation for stabilization. And if your nervous system just keeps compensating, it's just a matter of time where stability on every level declines. It's going to lower your metabolic state. It's going to lower your ability to rest and digest. It really is a key factor in everything pain related. Now, just quickly, your autonomic nervous system is really a monitor for 3 regulators of stress, repair, and digestion. So that's what we call the sympathetic, parasympathetic, and enteric nervous systems. And in the MELT instructor trainings, this is what we also go into detail with, is understanding what happens when our stress regulator is constantly on. And that's what's happening in America and around the world today, is that our efficiency, our ability to work with stress and then repair is getting out of balance, because when we're awake, the stress regulator is dominant. And ideally, after a stress response, no matter what the level of stress is that we incur, ideally the autonomic nervous system brings us back to balance, activating the rest and repair mechanisms, right? But the thing is, in this day and age, we are stressed out and it is tipping the scale. And the thing is, if we don't help our autonomic nervous system upregulate the repair processes. And listen, your fascial system cells, those are the repair cells of your body. Remember that earlier slide. Our fascial system is the stability system of all of these regulation elements of stability. So if we can't go back to this balanced state, we wake up the next day with a backlog of this accumulative stress. And here's what happens. It wreaks havoc on our body. And now we get symptoms that seem completely unrelated to fascia. All of a sudden, you're noticing that you have inflammation. You feel bloated, you're gaining weight, you are having constipation, you have unnecessary weight gain, you have anxiety and depression, you have a lack of energy. And for as exhausted as you feel in the day, at night, when you try to fall asleep, you can't. And then you wake up the next day with a backlog of accumulative stress because now you're more exhausted. And what inflammation does in fascia is it wreaks havoc on our digestive behavior, that third element of autonomic regulation. And as our digestive system starts to have inflammation, now we have poor neurotransmission, serotonin and dopamine, and all of these rest and digest neurotransmitters start to decline. And now you have cloudy brain, you are grumpy all the time, you can't think straight. And these are the things that, again, we address with medications most often. But if we could learn that the fascial system actually helps neurological stability, we could transform people's lives simply by using softballs and rollers on their hands and feet and throughout their body. Now, the biggest thing about all of this accumulative stress is that the fluid flow of fascia is being driven into the lymphatic system by what are called pre-lymphatic channels. And the immune system is part of this lymph system. It's the most important aspect of your lymphatic system. So the gut microbiomes, metabolic and digestive behaviors start to decline. And when the fluid flow of fascia cannot move efficiently through the lymph, you are really compromising your overall health and well-being. These pre-lymphatic conduits are the link between the fascia and the lymph, and it's a critical element of our immune process. So really, fascia is one big endocrine lymphoid system, and it is a part of your immune processes. So in this day and age, we know how critical our immune system is. And if you want to help support your immune functions, then again, fascia is having a relationship with your immune processes as well. So again, fascia beyond myofascia, the fascial research has really opened up a new perspective to understanding the biological mechanisms involved in wound healing, cancer metastasis, and fibrotic diseases. So we're really just at the precipice of transforming how medicine is even taking this information in, but medical practices are beginning to look at the fascial network and trying to create new ways to work on these exact symptoms, these issues. So what does MELT do? The MELT method simplifies neurofascial science. And in the teacher trainings, I essentially break down all of the aspects of connective tissue, how the autonomic nervous system relates to fascia, and how the immune system relates to fascia, because these are the 3 primary systems of your body that keep you stable and balanced and integrated. So they work together, and fascia is the environment that your autonomic nervous system and immune system rely upon to function efficiently. So infusing the research into application, that's what I've been doing for all of these years, to basically answer 3 questions. How can we improve body awareness and avoid stuck stress accumulation to get people to understand what this stuck stress feels like before they have pain so that they can actually become proactive instead of reactive to their aging process? The second question we answer in MELT is, how can we use tension and compression forces to improve fascia's supportive, resilient qualities from day to day? Because here's the thing, guys, tension and compression can cause fascial altercations, but those same compression and tension concepts can actually restore fascial hydration if you know how, and that's what you learn in MELT. And the third question we answer is, how can we support balance in the 3 regulators of our autonomic nervous system? How can we actively participate in restoring autonomic regulation in a waking state? And you learn all of these components in MELT in a simple process. So in MELT, when you take the training, I break down all of the science. Once we go through all of the neurofascial science, neurofascial science is confusing, and fascial research is also very complex. So I simplify it into what we call the MELT living body model. And you learn about these 5 elements that a living human body has to sustain stability. We learn about the autopilot, which is our autonomic nervous system, and how these autonomic aspects of our body work. Body sense, which is the 6th sense in our body that is functioning out of our conscious awareness and beyond our 5 common senses. The tensional energy or fluid flow of fascia, the masses and spaces. Instead of talking about anatomy, we learn to use the masses and spaces model to define where accumulative stress is living in our body so that we can veer our mind away from where we have pain symptoms. And we also tap into the neurological core mechanisms we call the neurocore, which is talking about the dual neurofascial stabilizing system of your body, not the core that we learn in traditional fitness. And then we take the living body model and we infuse it into the 4 R's of MELT. We call reconnect, rebalance, rehydrate, and release. And the methodology basically uses 4 soft and firm therapy balls that we use on the hands and feet. And we use soft body rollers, a full roller, as well as a half roller that we use for move modifications, and also for clients who have pain issues or fibromyalgia, Parkinson's, or any disorders. The 4 R's, reconnect techniques. These are assessment techniques. We teach people how to identify, either by using body sense or movement assessments, what stuck stress feels like in their body and how it is altering the fine balance of their masses and spaces, as well as their neurological regulation. And then once we have rest assess and reconnect techniques, we apply these to the rebalancing techniques, which are ways to tap into your neurological core reflexes, your neurocore. So by activating diaphragmatic motion and the core reflex and the rooting reflexes throughout the myofascial channel we call the neurocore, we can restore neurological balance in a quick 10-minute treatment. It's quite profound. The rebalance sequence ties us into another component of MELT, is rehydrate. And again, we use compression and tension techniques to activate the hydration effect of fascia. So the 3 compression techniques we call gliding, shearing, and rinsing. You learn how to apply these gentle compression techniques to prepare and explore your bodies for areas of tenderness. Shearing techniques to stimulate mechanotransduction and to stimulate the cells of fascia, to stimulate that fluid flow in the fascial matrix. And then rinsing to create a global fluid exchange throughout the entire connective tissue matrix. And we use the soft balls and soft therapy rollers to apply these very, very precise compression techniques that are akin to manual therapeutic techniques to drive the fluid flow back through the matrix. lymphatics. And these rehydrate techniques of compression, we also have lengthening techniques, which are tensional techniques that create fascial tension against the myofascial lines. And this is the one area where we do work on the myofascial layers, is to find tensional integrity through these matrix lines. It's a very profound concept, different than muscle stretching, and much more profound to actually draw fluid flow through the primary spaces of the body, most specifically your neck and low back. And once we've worked on the hydration compression, we also have release techniques, which are decompression techniques to draw traction along the spine and throughout the sternal region to decompress the unnecessary tension and compression that exists in our neck and low back from day to day. And the beauty about these techniques is that we draw them into sequences, and most of the sequences take about 10 minutes a day. And again, we can treat our bodies and learn how to do this at home on our own. And once we go through any techniques, we always reassess to value the changes that our self-care practice can make. And this is what really brings awareness for people to learn more about it. So in our course, the course overview that we have, the level 1 instructor training course, it's a 90-day online instructor training course, and it actually is 2 courses in one. You get the hand and foot instructor training and the level 1 roller training all in one big 90-day course. The course is divided into modules, and in between the modules, we have 6 live calls with myself and our TAs to review your techniques, make sure that you have the techniques in your body, and to review cueing and concepts. You get 3 manuals, you get the hand and foot therapy kit and the full roller and the half roller. And we also have a Q&A in the modules where you can ask questions as you go during your own training. And we also have a private Facebook page where you can connect with your peers. And we also add a level of teaching on that private page. So it's a very robust 90-day curriculum. It is not an over-the-counter teacher training. This is a curriculum like a college level curriculum. Our next level 1 training is July. It begins on July the 12th. If you register early, early registration gets you access to the course early so that you can jump in, especially for those of us who feel like we need even more time than 90 days. And you guys are going to get a link to this recording of the webinar so that you guys can listen back to this. And at the end of the training, you'll also get an email, not only with the link, but also a special offer for the training for $300 off the course if you register with the coupon that we're going to send to you. So one final thing is, who are MELT instructors? And MELT instructors span a massive gamut. We have on one side fitness professionals who do group exercise, yoga and Pilates, fitness trainers, personal trainers, and movement therapists. We also have on the other side manual therapists who apply it to their private practice and also teach in group environments and bring it into both sectors, both in group and in their private practice, massage and physical therapists, acupuncturists, somatic movement educators. And we also have quite a handful of medical doctors, nurses, osteopaths, and physiotherapists who also come to take the course. And in fact, we have one of those here with us today. I want to introduce you to one of our new graduates of the online instructor training, Lumi Worsfold, and she is in England. She's a manual lymphatic drainage and decongestive lymph therapist. She's been trained through the Vaughter School. It's a wonderful school. She's also a Bowen therapist. She does reflexology, electrotherapy, holistic and complementary therapies, and Otago. It's a strength-based training for the frail and elderly person, and she is a MELT instructor. So I'm going to bring Lumi on with us. Hi, Lumi. Let me see if I can.
Hello, Sue. Hello, everybody.
Let's see. Add a spotlight. Hang on one second. Sorry, hang on one second. I'm just going to pin you. I'm just looking for my pin. There you are. Continue. Hi, Lumi.
Hello, Sue.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you for introducing me, and thank you for, oh my God, all this explosion of information that you always give to all of us. It's just amazing what you do. And I've done a lot of online trainings, but I've never, ever experienced something like you've done with your whole team. I mean, it took for me almost 4 years to start my journey with you because of different reasons. But one day my husband came home and he gave me a surprise by buying the 2 books of yours. And in that moment, I knew that's it. This is my journey. We'll start with Sue. So I quickly have a look online, and then I've seen when you have the next level 1, and then that's it. I embarked, and then I just can't express myself how encouraged I was with you all, and how I just discovered you all. I call you all my angels, because indeed everything and every of us, because I watched every of us from the training, we were telling one question. Everybody, all the instructors were jumping in, telling your response and everything. So you were looking after us very, very nicely. And although my training journey has been a bit challenging due to my work, because I normally work 10 hours a day. And by the way, because of MELT and Bowen, and of course MLD, manual lymph drainage, I don't do reflexology anymore. I don't do, because it's no point for me.
And actually, Lumi, I'd love to ask you, because you are a manual therapist, right? Yes. And this course, has a lot to do with being able to convey this back to your clients. How have you incorporated MELT into your practice? What do you do with it?
Yes. So first of all, each patient I introduce to MELT by first I do myself. So I do with the ball, I work on them. I do the hand treatment with them. I do the feet treatment with them. Of course, assess, reassess. And this is when they go, oh my God, what is this? Are you a witch or what? And then, of course, coming along with everything, all the balls and the rollers.
Do you have them go home and do it for themselves after you teach them?
Yes. Yes, I send them videos. And then I videoed myself. Well, my husband is videoing me, and then I explain clearly what to do and then of course, whatever video I haven't done, I always send to the meltmethod.com, and I said, you will be hearing Sue, because for me it's very important, because my father is a forensic, and he is always telling me repetitium is mater of studiorum. Well, this is you, Sue. Every single video that I was listening to you, repetition. It's just amazing. It's impossible not to remember, even like for a foreigner like me. It's impossible, So,
well, something that I know happened to me and I'll share this with everybody. When I first started teaching MELT, I thought for sure, when my client said, if you could invent a way for me to do this at home, I thought to myself, well, if I did that, I would not have a private practice. I would be unemployed. But there was something that really struck me. And I thought, well, what if I could get them to go home and support the healing process? Could I get them out of my office faster? And for me, that's what happened. I mean, not only did they get better faster, they called everybody that they knew that had problems. And all of a sudden, my private practice exploded with new people, which gave me new experience and was what actually helped me to develop more techniques in the method. I'm sure that you experienced the same with your clients.
Of course. I mean, I am sure that you agree with me. Each patient is unique, so they will bring you a new story, a new why they have the pain, what happened, and everything. And you won't believe, Sue, in lymphedema, I managed until now to treat 2 very particular patients that they have fibrosis in the past, and I just could not manage the fibrosis in any other way. But the roller, and of course the balls, but the roller has helped me so much. I've done I've introduced them first with my hands, as you taught us all, and I've seen you even when you were in YouTube doing that. And after that, I've started little by little to introduce them to the roller, and then they doing it at home, and then they come home and their ankles are not so swollen anymore. Suddenly,
yes,
cellulite.
exactly.
And then what is my big thing is that I'm taking photos before and after.
Beautiful.
And then the nurses that I'm sending the patients to, because they are through NHS, National Health, they telling me you need to bandage, and I said no, I don't need to bandage anymore. I just need to. I'm not saying, for example, for elephantiasis patients, for the ones that they really, stage 4. No, but the stage 1, 2, and 3. It's just amazing, amazing, and also cellulite.
Yes, of course.
For ladies. Oh, 1 week picture before and after. What a result. And then, the muscles, of course, they're modifying, and they're different. It's different shape. You are a different person on your legs. It's just lovely. Just lovely. And I have a lady that sadly has had a tongue cancer many years ago, and she developed, after she gave got rid of the lymphedema, she has now a lot of fibrosis and developed osteonecrosis. And at the moment we're working, and in another month, next month, she has her second. Oh my God, it's
amazing, right?
She doesn't spit blood anymore. She doesn't spit blood anymore.
I've had clients just like this, and this necrosis that happens through that, and working on the face treatment and just subtle base of skull, the rebalance sequence. I hope what you guys are hearing is how a therapist is taking the information and then handing it to their clients to say, the thing about when you have an injury or an issue or a diagnosis, you feel very victimized to it. And here you're empowering that client to do things at home. And this is really where transformation happens. And someone else who I'm going to bring on here is Carrie Bodendorf. Carrie, are you here? Can I get you on? Hi, Carrie. Carrie's one of our master trainers who has been with me, it feels like since the beginning of time, which I know isn't true, but you've been with me
a dozen years.
About a dozen years. And Carrie also,
I had brown hair when I started.
You did. and Carrie, Carrie teaches Zumba classes and melt classes in group environments. And I know that you've seen incredible changes in your group, and I know that you've been checking out the chat here. I don't know if there's any other questions or thoughts you might want to talk about here in this last bit of time.
There's actually, before Lumi even started talking about lymphedema and cancer, there are some questions about lymphedema and cancer. Specifically, how does MELT help with lipedema, lymphedema? And we've got a couple of people with cancer that are actually asking if MELT can be beneficial to them.
Yeah, so huge questions. Okay, so like lipedema is a completely different process, right? And of course, when you're with a doctor, and if you have lymphedema or lipedema, they're very, very different issues. But one thing to talk about here is that no matter what the problem is, even cancer, the most important thing that you all learn to do is treat your hands and feet. Period. The mini hand and the mini foot treatment you guys are watching on YouTube, once this is done, go and take a look at what those treatment techniques are. Because the thing about going through cancer treatments, if you are going through radiation, chemotherapy, or any of the lymphedema processes, you're taking the medications for lymphedema, all of these things are going to cause other types of inflammatory effects in the body. And it wreaks havoc on your neurological regulation. Treating your hands and feet will help to stimulate your nervous system to decrease the stress response and boost your body's natural repair processes. The third one that you'll learn is the rebalance sequence, just the breathing, just working to activate the core reflex. Again, our first job is to quiet the stress and boost your body's natural repair processes in a waking state. And that's our first objective with any of those. I really don't even care what the disease or the disorder is. Everybody starts with mini hand, mini feet, and rebalance. And just doing that for 14 days, you'll start to notice overall your sleep will improve. You'll feel better. The cloudy head that you have when you're going through these types of treatments, the exhaustion, the fatigue, the ache in your body just starts to come down, because again, your nervous system is what's producing your sense of pain. Help the nervous system down-regulate the stress response and boost the body's repair, pain decreases. That's as simple as it is. That's a great question, Carrie.
Yeah. We have another one about a herniated disc in the lumbar spine.
Oh, my God.
Can that be healed?
Oh, yeah. A herniation and bulging disc. Listen, a lot of people, actually, I think if everybody listening today, if I did an MRI of everybody, probably 2/3 of you have a bulging or a herniated disc somewhere along the spine. And you probably have labral tears somewhere in your joints or your hips, and maybe tears in your knees that have not been diagnosed yet. The thing about these issues is what you're talking about is instability through the spine. And again, the way that MELT works is to restore the supportive qualities of fascia to improve the spaces of the body. That's what MELT is focused on, is improving the supportive qualities of the fascial tissue as they relate to your joints. Muscles, I'm going to say it, I'm going to say it is Gil's word. Muscles are fascia's bitch. They're going to do whatever the fascia tells it to do. So we are not muscle focused in MELT. We are working to improve the supportive qualities first. And as fascia becomes more hydrated, the elastic property is what returns. And this is what's so important for people who have herniations. We have tons of instructors who go through MELT who have herniated discs, and they start feeling the changes. And now they go ahead and they tell everybody about it. And that's how they create their thriving practice through MELT.
Another question, smaller issue than cancer, but very, very painful, bunions.
Oh yeah, we have a bunion treatment. It's funny, I mean, the bunions were one of my first things that I started to develop when I was in my 20s. I was at the beach with my mom and she goes, oh, you have a toe that's looking just like mine. And my mom's big toe was like friends with her pinky toe. I was like, oh my God, anything to not be like Linda's feet. And I developed a bunion treatment. And the thing about bunions, you have to remember, is that bunions are not a toe problems. Bunions are a pelvic problem, that altered gait that are now creating too much pronation in that big toe. As it starts to pronate, you're weakening the spiral line of the body. And so MELT also addresses these components. And the most important thing to remember is whether you have hammer toes, bunions, a bunionette, our role here is to decrease the pain so that you stop complaining about it. Cosmetically, I've kept my bunion from getting any worse than it is. My toes do not cross over, and my toe did cross over for a time when I was in my 20s, and I returned it because I corrected it. But those of you who are older and have one, if we can minimize the pain and improve your gait, it'll decrease the pain in your foot, and you'll also just improve the resilience of the shock absorbability of your footing, which will help back pain, hip pain, things like that.
Yeah. Someone just put in hammer toes. As you were saying the word hammer toes, someone put in hammer toes. Yes, it will help.
Yeah, hammer toes are that fascial dehydration in the bottom of the back line causing that tensional pull. And again, all of these things will help you. Hey, listen, if you have hammer toes, you need to learn the lower body compression sequence, by the way. I would go to MELT On Demand. I would find out all about these things. So, yeah. Well, look, we're
Method website.
Yes. And we're at the end of our hour here. So I hope that this was at least illuminating to give you guys a little bit of insight about what's going on and what lies beneath your skin, and why you should learn a little bit more about connective tissue on a global level. So if you are curious about anything else about MELT, remember, if you have a question about our products, you could always email info@meltmethod. You could go to meltmethod.com. We have a streaming platform. There are hundreds of videos, and actually coming up next month, we have live MELT classes as an additional asset on MELT On Demand. And Carrie and 3 or 4 of our other top instructors are going to be teaching live classes, as well as me online. There'll be a pre-chat room where we can talk to each other and decide what moves we want to practice, do a class, and also have a little download at the end. It is going to rock your world. I'm super excited for this. Lumi.
All I wanted to say also is that everybody doesn't have to think only of adults. We can treat babies, newborn babies with MELT, and it's amazing. They
just with your hands.
Yes, I've just, I do my grandson. They've just been born. He's 1 month, and from 3 days onwards, I've been doing, and he's now just falling asleep. It's
Yes,
just
yes.
so
Kids who have colic, kids who don't fall asleep,
yes,
kids who
yes,
pee the bed, all of these things, learning to treat them also with your hands. Because again, melt is simulating hands-on therapy, and you can
yes.
simulate it using your hands. It is powerful. It's a great thing, Lumi,
And go out and talk to the doctors, that's what I do. I give talks to consultants, to doctors.
That's
Doesn't
right.
matter where, go out and talk, because you'll not feel sorry. You will feel that you're reborn, honestly.
I
And
love
do
that.
it yourself every day. Do it yourself every day.
Indeed, I melt every day. I feel better for it. And I have to say, it is one of the things that can really transform your life, is just learning how to create these subtle body techniques and get in your body. Because remember, when you're in pain, I know you want to tune it out, but if you want to eliminate pain, you have to learn to get in your body to get out of pain. And that's really what melt is all about. Well, I want to thank everybody for being on the call. Lumi, I am so excited to see what else you do in your practice and to see some of your before and afters. Carrie, as always, thanks for being part of this melt community. And again, for those of you who are curious to learn more about melt, I am always on Instagram. I tend to post on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'll probably go over there today just to talk about what we did today. I'm on YouTube, lots of free content there. And again, we do have a streaming platform, Melt on Demand. And if you are curious about this instructor training, again, I'm going to be sending you this video recording and a coupon. So don't register just yet. Let me send you a coupon and give you a little bit of a savings for this so that you guys can register for the course and become part of this incredible Melt community. Until I see you guys all in a live training or online, I give you 3 tips. Sip water frequently, if you would, for me, please. Eat water-filled foods. And because you're listening to this, will you call somebody that you love today and tell them why you love them and put some positive vibes out into the world, please? That'll just elevate it for everybody. And I would grandly appreciate that myself. So I hope everybody's well. Thanks again for being part of this. Happy melting.
Happy melting.